was, in the name of the Heavenly Father, the Hawashadis, and this world, even because Jesus Christ is his true name, and the Josh, that is the Holy Spirit. I would like to also give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all you brothers out there. Now, I just want to do a quick lesson. As you see the title, let's get these spiritual W's. Don't worry about titles and ranks. All right, and this is basically inspired by what was said by Elder Uriah after camp yesterday. All right, and this past week, the Chicago camp, we've had a lot of brothers. They got actually promoted, to different ranks. Okay, and I would say it was about a good solid 10 brothers, that got promoted. Depending on what they were, where they were at, that they elevated. All right, the spirit party, how about Shimon Shah? And I'll say this: we haven't had brothers get promoted in a very long time. I would say probably like a year. Give or take about a year, if I can remember correctly. And out of nowhere, brothers, got the promotion. Okay. And with that being said, from what the Elder Uriah said, a brother was upset that he ended up not getting, promoted and elevated. And like how the elder said, it was nothing, personal. It just didn't happen. All right, for whatever reason. Okay. And with that being said, I'll say this, for brothers, don't worry about these different titles and these ranks. Okay. Look, you just continue to do what you're doing. Okay. All right, the scriptures talk about what? You got to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. That's what you should be focused on. All right, yourself, becoming that new man, that new creature, right? Improving, every day. You see? And I'll say this, we're all fighting for that same penny as the scriptures, speak on. All right, I believe that's in the Gospels. Okay? It talks about that in the Gospels, how, every single one of us is trying to get that same penny, which is basically salvation, And I'll say this, another thing, when you do get these promotions, right, there's a lot that comes with it, there's more responsibility. Let me get that scripture, because it says what? From much is given, much is required, okay? And I'm going to quote what Elder Malcolm has stated for years, all right? He said, he said this many times that, he wishes that he can sometimes just be, the guy in the back, holding a sign, right? Holding post, maybe reading for a brother, Because as you get elevated in this thing, there's a lot to it, man. Now you got to, be more on point, right? You got to lead, by example. You're watching over, brothers' souls. Now you're dealing with different, councils. You got to give rebuke out. There's a lot to it. It's not an easy job, elevating, in the ranks. Okay? And, the Chicago camp, I got a pretty high rank. And it's a lot, man, sometimes. It really is. All right, so don't sit there and think it's, peaches and cream once you get, on top. All right, so to speak. Once you just, climb the ladder. All right, but let me get this. This is the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48, and it reads, "But he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom much have committed much, of him they will ask more." Okay, so if you're elevating this thing, you're going to be sacrificing a lot, in particular your time. Because now brothers are going to they're like, I'll say this, they're going to call you for counsel, right? They say you might have to be, the one that's giving, these different rebukes and reproofs, right? Brothers may call you and ask you for spiritual advice. breakdowns, for different scriptures and precepts. It's a lot to it. Okay, you know, for my situation, I run Thursday class. That was something that was given to me. You know, heads of the camp assigned me to it, and it's a lot. Having to show up to class every week. All right, have a lesson in mind. And sometimes we just run through the spirit. All right, but point being though is I got to run a class. It's not simple. Okay, and I got a lot of men under me. Got to make sure that that they're on point. Because look, if I don't get these men in order, right, then I got my elder, right, the elder Yaki, he's above me. I got to talk to him. If these men are out of pocket, aren't doing their task, then I get in trouble. And look, if he doesn't get me in order, right, if he doesn't check me from time to time, and things get out of line, then he's getting checked, right? It's all a spiritual thing, and it just keeps going up the food chain. And then really at the end of the day, look, our boss is whom? Yahweh Shemel Shai. Okay, you see, we got to make sure that we're doing a good job. All right, but let me read that one more time though. This is Luke 12 and 48. He that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask for more. All right, so just remember that. All right, it's a lot to this thing. As you go up the ranks, it's a lot comes with it. Then on top of that, I'll say this. Then there's the Elder Uriah said at the end of camp he mentioned this, that best believe you're gonna have to deal with more and more demons. Okay, as you elevate in this thing. And I'm not saying that a young man that's of lower rank doesn't deal with their spiritual battles, right? But as you get as you get up there, it gets hard. Okay, and I'll say this: it might be too much for you. I look, because the scriptures talk about how we have different measures of faith. Okay, let me see if I can find that. Yeah, this is Romans 12 and 3. Let me get this real quick. It says, "For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to." Okay, and I'll say this: if you think that you belong, in a different position, look, you're off, man. I'm gonna be blunt. You're off. Okay, let the Lord elevate you and exalt you in due time. You know, the scriptures talk about what, not forcing the course. Don't force the course of the river. Just do what you're supposed to do. Do your job. Because look, at the end of the day, we're a body. And then I'll say this: every member is important, no matter who you are in this thing. You know, if somebody's got to be the head, somebody's got to be the mouth, somebody's got to be the ears. Like somebody's got to be like the arms, the hands, the feet, right? Whatever the case may be. Every brother has a particular position to play. Hey, do your role, man. Okay, to the best of your ability. All these different titles and ranks, it's just for order's sake. You know, we're not here to to be exalted on this side, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Look, we're looking for those spiritual crowns that Yahweh Shai is going to give us. You know, those incorruptible crowns. We're not here for corruptible crowns. All right, that's what we should be focused on. All right, let me get this. Let me finish it off. It says, Romans 12:3, in the latter part now, it says, but to think soberly, according as the Most High had dealt to every man the measure of faith. So every man has their own measure of faith. You know, look, I like to say this. Look, I'm not going to be the apostles. I'm not going to be, Elder Malcolm, right? The different elders in my camp. The Elder Shawamba. I'm not going to be those men. And I'm not going to be, the men below me, right? I'm not going to be a deacon, a disciple, a teacher anymore. I'm who I am. That's what I got to, deal with. My lot, my role. And that's what brothers should be thinking about. What's your lot? What's your role? Whatever it is, hey, do it to the best of your ability, as I said earlier. Okay? Try to improve to, as much as you can. Then, through the Spirit, if the Lord wants your role to change, it will change. Okay? But you know what? I got to get it, Don't force the course. This is Sirach chapter 4, verse 26. Be not ashamed to confess thy sins, and force not the course of the river. Okay? Because look, if you like, I'll say this. When you're let's just say in a river or some type of stream, whatever the case may be, right? And you try to, go upstream, so to speak, right? Like a salmon. Yeah, you're gonna lose every time, man. You ain't gonna win, buddy. That ain't you. You're not him, right? You gotta go with the flow of things. That's the best way to do it. Roll with the punches, You trying to, fight and force things, it's gonna eventually lead to some type of downfall. All right. But you don't want to, fall out of this truth. You want to stay in it. Okay. So it's just best to play your part, as I've said. Okay, and I'm gonna get that in the scriptures in a moment about how basically we're one body. All right. Let's see if I can find that. I think it's in First Corinthians. This is let me see where I should start. This is jeez, man, this whole chapter. Hey, let's just hold the spirit, see where it leads us. All right, and this is impromptu, by the way. Had a couple of scriptures in mind, but I'm just going with the spirit. This is 1 Corinthians 12:4 says, now there are diversities of gifts, the same spirit. Okay, so we all have different gifts. Every brother's, it's different roles, you see. It's for, the greater good at the end of the day. All right? It says, if there are differences of administrations with the same Lord, and there are diversities of operations, but it is the same power which worketh all in all. But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another the gifts of healing by the same Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one and the same self Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. For as the body is one and has many members, all the members of that one body, being many, are one body. So also is Yahweh Shai. So right there it showed you that brothers are gonna have different gifts in this thing. Okay? Some brothers, hey, I'll say this, right? They're good at dealing with prophecy, right? Taking the things that are happening, right now, geopolitically, economically, so on and so forth, and they, tied in with the scriptures. And they make it plain to the people to understand, you know, what's happening right now. Some brothers are good with exhortation, right? You know, building the brothers up, getting them spiritually prepped up. You know, yeah, you got others who are great at just simply rebuking, cursing Jake out, whether it be out there on the streets, right? Whether it be, one-on-one, so to speak, with the brother in the camp. Point being though is, hey, Jake has different gifts, and you got certain brothers, they're physicians, they're physicians. That's their job. Certain brothers are helps, all right. But look, at the end of the day, it's all for the betterment of the body. Everybody has, these gifts to help out one another. See, that's what we should really be focusing on. And these things made us what? Spiritual W's. Not a damn title in a rank. I said that's of course for order's sake, right? Even the Elder Doc mentioned it. And the Lord set that up for a reason, of course. So because the scriptures say what it's was it 1 Corinthians 14 and 40, that all things be done decently and in order, right? You gotta have some type of structure. But look, we're not trying to get these ranks to be lords over men. Actually, the scriptures say what? The more greater thou art, the more humble thou shalt be. Okay? And as you get elevated, you got to be more humble. You got to be more of a servant. Okay? Like Yahushua. He's the greatest example. This is, the Son of Man, right? This is, Yahweh's only begotten Son. And he was washing the feet of the disciples at the time, later turned apostles. That's heavy. See? And really, as you elevate in this thing, you become more scared. The reason why I say that is because, you don't want to make the wrong move. You don't want to be a bad example. You don't want to rub a brother the wrong way. Basically, offend somebody. You see? All right? Just keep that in mind. Let me keep reading. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and I'm at 13 now. For by one Spirit for by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. See, this is not about one person. We got a lot of members in this thing. Okay, it says here, if the foot shall say, because I am not the hand, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? And if the ear shall say, because I am not the eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where were the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where were the smelling? But now hath the Most High set the members, every one of them, in the body, as it hath pleased him. Okay, and look, wherever you're at in this thing, that's because Yahweh Bashem Yahushua set you up there. Okay? Like I like to say a lot of times, man, just be grateful and thankful for hearing this truth. That's something that I learned a long time ago, and I still think about to this day. Just be grateful and thankful that you're in this truth, because out of all these millions and billions of Israelites, right, that are out there worldwide, you got the truth. The Lord didn't have to reveal these things unto you. Because the scriptures talk about what? How they're these things are plain unto the holy, stumbling blocks unto the wicked. If this word is plain unto you, that's a beautiful thing. Because the majority of our people, when they hear this word, that we're preaching, it's stumbling blocks unto them. Look, a lot of people can't get past that. Just in general, the Lord is what they would call so-called black men. That bugs them out. Then you got, I'm saying, even day of the circumcision, some of them believe that Gentiles can make it. Others believe that, look, you can only be black, right, to be an Israelite. You can't have, the Latinos or the, Native Americans involved. Then you'll have some of them that, okay, well, we believe in all that. But look, if you look like a heathen or a Gentile, there's no way that you could be an Israelite. It's insane, man, how many stumbling blocks are out there. So just be grateful that you really understand this thing. And you have a role in it. Whatever the case may be. That's a beautiful thing. All right? Let me keep reading. Here we go. This is 1 Corinthians 12 and 19. And if they were all one member, where were the body? But now are they many members, yet but one body. And the eye cannot say unto the hand, I have no need of thee, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Nay, much more those members of the body were seen to be more feeble are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundant honor, and our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. For our comely parts have no need, but the Most High hath tempered the body together, having given much abundant honor to that part which lacked, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. You see, it's not about you. It's not about these, different titles, ranks. It's about us being, formed perfectly. Okay, by Yahweh Shai. So we can function as one body, properly. You see, that's what this thing is all about. All right. See, at the end of the day, going back to what I said, that brought out that scripture, in the Gospels where it talks about, it's a parable, right? And then it talks about how the servants got that penny. That's what we're fighting for. We just want to get salvation. Hey, look, we just want to make it together. Get out of this place, get saved, see this place, get annihilated, right? And then us, being transformed. Us coming down in our God, like state, and getting things in order with your house shot. That's what we want to do. The hell with this side, man. It's cares about it. It's really irrelevant. So don't worry about all these different, like I said, ranks and titles. That's really carnal. When you really think about it, it is very, very carnal. All right, that's something of this world. We're trying to, get past that. You see? I don't know, man. It's just wild sometimes how Jake can get. And I get it. We're in the flesh. We mess up. We got different emotions, different feelings. It happens. You gotta check that. At the door. Take a breather real quick and just let it go. No need to dwell on it. No need to get upset. All right. I just wanted to do a quick lesson on that. It was something that was brought up after camp. Maybe think about it. Really, I wanted to do this last night, but I just didn't have time. So just wanted to do a quick one before I, head out, head out to work and get some money. I just wanted to get a spiritual lesson in beforehand. So hopefully whoever was listening to this was edified, and hey, brothers and sisters, just keep getting them spiritual W's. That's what's important. Not these titles, ranks, positions. You just keep doing what you're doing, and do the best that you can. All right. So hopefully this was edifying one. And with that, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem. Also, the promise to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to all you brothers out there. Shalom.